Welcome to the Empowering Story Podcast. This is a space where healing is allowed to take its own shape. Nothing here is rushed. Nothing is measured. We listen to what's already present and to what might be ready to move in its own time. This episode features the work and thinking of Sean Dorff, author, coach, and founder of the Empowering Story and the Authority Bridge. Much of Sean's work has focused on helping people transform lived experience into meaningful change through writing, coaching, and structured reflection. Over time, that work expanded into a deeper question. Why do some deeply skilled practitioners become recognized authorities, while others remain structurally invisible despite years of real expertise? This episode explores the intersection of authority, AI search, narrative structure, thought leadership, and the architecture of durable expertise in the modern digital landscape. Let's begin.
Imagine pouring a decade, maybe more, of lived, hard-earned experience into your work. You know your subject inside and out. You have walked through fire, extracted real knowledge, and changed lives in the room. And then you look at the data. In 2024, over 60% of internet searches ended without a single click. People get their answers directly from AI overviews, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google, right there on the search page. They never visit your website. They never find your name. For anyone building a practice around deep expertise, that statistic is terrifying. You might feel like the most skilled person in your niche. But to the algorithms that now control who gets seen, you are practically a ghost. That is the tension we are unraveling today. The structural gap between merely getting attention on the internet and actually building recognized, durable authority. Here is the paradox that so many deeply skilled practitioners live inside every single day. You have walked through fire. You possess profound personal experience and real, verifiable knowledge. Yet you remain the best-kept secret in your niche, while people with far less substance are building massive platforms and recognized authority. The instinct is to blame yourself, your effort, your consistency, your story. But the gap isn't about any of those things. It is entirely structural. It is a structural failure to translate lived experience into a recognizable functional system for others, deeply skilled in the room, structurally invisible to the market. That is the paradox we need to solve.
So what does conventional marketing tell you to do about this? The standard advice is relentlessly consistent. Post more. Show up every single day. Be vulnerable. Share your story. Consistency is the key to everything. But this advice is not just ineffective for practitioners working with deep or trauma-informed material. It is actively destructive. It leads straight into what I call the visibility trap. The trap works like this. You feel the pressure, so you jump onto LinkedIn or Instagram and start posting daily. But because you have not structured your core message first, that visibility backfires. It amplifies confusion. It creates noise. Think about a relational trauma coach, someone who, in private one-on-one sessions, is an absolute powerhouse. She spots deep behavioral patterns instantly and facilitates incredible breakthroughs. But her public content tells a completely different story. Monday is a generic motivational quote, Tuesday is a raw personal story, Wednesday is a bulleted list of life hacks. It sounds like 10 different people are running the account because there is no unifying structure underneath. It is like putting up a dozen billboards for the same store. But every single billboard advertises a completely different product. People see the billboards, but no one knows what you sell or why they should pull off the highway. And here is the critical distinction this leads us to, the difference between familiarity and authority, because they are not the same thing. Familiarity is performance consistency. You use the same visual hooks, you optimize for the algorithm, and eventually people recognize your face as they scroll. They know who you are, but it creates a mirage of expertise. Actual authority operates on a completely different cognitive level. True authority is established when an audience can reliably predict how you think, not just parrot back what you say. If you lack a consistent, structured lens, your audience cannot anticipate how you would approach a new problem, and if they can't mentally model your thought process, they can't rely on you as a guide. They might like a motivational quote, but when they are in crisis or need high-level help, they don't hire the person who is merely familiar. They seek out the person who is structured, coherent, and reliable. Recognition alone does not mean your thinking is understood. It means you are visible, not relied upon.
So, if disjointed posting causes confusion, why do so many brilliant, deeply experienced experts continue to communicate this way? The answer is something I call the articulation gap. The articulation gap is the massive void between knowing your subject or your own story deeply and possessing the external structure required to express it in a way that is actually useful to a stranger. The biggest psychological hurdle is the tendency to collapse the past and the present. When someone hasn't created psychological distance from their own lived experience, especially common with trauma or intense personal struggle, they speak about those past events as if they are actively happening right now. The experience speaks through them. There is overwhelming sensory detail and emotional flooding. Think of an actor completely lost inside the emotion of a tragic scene. They are crying real tears, and it is powerful, but they are stuck inside the emotion. What you need to build authority is the director's perspective, the person outside the scene, understanding exactly how that specific emotion serves the narrative arc of the entire film. The very rawness that makes a personal story feel authentic and vulnerable on social media may also be the thing preventing it from becoming structured, transferable expertise. Researcher James Pennebaker's work on narrative psychology helps us understand the mechanics. When you force yourself to organize a traumatic or chaotic experience into a structured written narrative, you don't just record your thoughts, you actually create psychological distance. You gain cognitive clarity. You build a boundary around the chaos. And that shift requires a very specific internal reorientation. You must stop asking, "What happened to me?" and start asking, "What can be understood from what happened?" That is the alchemy that turns raw pain into material for insight. Watch what happens when you make that shift. The chaotic, tangled knot of raw memory begins to unwind. You move from reliving to observing, from sensory flooding to pattern recognition, from survivor to guide. Time alone does not create that distance. Structured reflection does.
Before we get to the solution, I want to be very clear about why most practitioners stay stuck. It is not a willpower problem. It is a sequence problem. The conventional model runs like this: story, visibility, offers, and it creates friction, amplifies confusion, and leads straight to burnout. You become inconsistent at scale because you are trying to write your way through something that first needs to be structured. The correct sequence is the reverse: authority blueprint first. Then your anchor, the book. Then visibility, then opportunities. Structure must precede visibility. That is the entire thesis. Marketing systems were built for people selling generic services, not for practitioners working with lived experience and trauma-informed material. Pushing visibility too early doesn't just fail to work. It disrupts your ability to stay grounded.
The solution is what I call the authority bridge. It is a 90-day coaching and practitioner brand builder designed to translate lived experience into an undeniable body of work. And it is built on 4 authority anchors. Not 4 marketing tactics, not 4 content strategies, but 4 load-bearing anchors that, when set, form a single self-sustaining system. When the anchors are in place, you no longer push content. High-ticket clients and AI search algorithms find you because your thinking holds its shape without you in the room. Let us walk you through each one. Anchor 1 is the authority blueprint. This is the design, and critically, this happens before you publish a single post or record a single video. The blueprint requires you to rigorously define 4 key elements. First, your authority source, the actual, often hidden root of why you know what you know. Not just your credentials, but where your authority genuinely comes from. Second, your authority scope, the exact perimeter of what you do and, almost more importantly, what you explicitly do not cover. Defining scope gives you psychological safety and gives your client incredible clarity. Permission to not be the expert on everything is more powerful than most people realize. Third, your authority lens, your unique framework. The specific way you see the problem differently than the rest of your industry. And fourth, your authority application, how this lens is practically used to solve real-world problems. When you have your blueprint, sharing stops feeling risky and starts feeling intentional. You establish authority before exposure. You never feel shaky, second guess a post, or feel exposed because you built the foundation first. Anchor 2 is the authority book, the container. For coaches and practitioners who have been mining their past for social media content, this part of the work feels deeply exposing. It leads to severe burnout. The authority book is different. It is built with boundaries from the start. The blueprint we just defined dictates exactly what goes onto the page and what stays safely private. The structure of the book supports the author emotionally, while the organized framework makes it profoundly useful to the reader. Writing this book facilitates a final layer of emotional integration, turning personal ache into professional ink. Personal pain becomes durable authority. Now, I know what you are thinking. Writing a book is a notorious trap. We all know someone with a work-in-progress manuscript sitting in a Google Doc for 5 years. So how does this approach prevent the book from becoming another abandoned, overwhelming project? It works because the goal is not to wander aimlessly through your thoughts. The process uses structured extraction, an intense 90-day sprint focused entirely on taking scattered, disjointed ideas and rapidly formatting them into a published body of work. Constraints drive completion. The results are real. Sarah had 3 years of disorganized notes. She finished her manuscript and landed her first keynote invitation within 90 days. Marcus had been sitting on a vague concept for 2 years. By building the blueprint first, he mapped his entire manuscript structure in 30 days and landed his highest ticket client shortly after. Dana arrived completely invisible online, paralyzed by the lack of structure. She now uses her published body of work to generate inbound leads without the daily posting treadmill. There is also an important editorial principle at work here. Because practitioners understand their field so deeply, every detail feels essential. They over-explain to prove their expertise. But cognitive load theory tells us that a reader can only process a small amount of new information at one time. Dumping 20 years of nuanced context onto a reader doesn't leave them feeling enlightened, it leaves them paralyzed. The discipline is intentional constraint. Think of a master physician who doesn't hand you the entire medical textbook, they prescribe the exact dosage you need. Or think of packing a carry-on suitcase for a friend. You are not dumbing down their wardrobe, you are making it carry-on compliant so they can actually travel with it. The way you choose those 3 outfits is through a process called pattern visibility. You don't invent a clever abstract framework from scratch. You look at what you are already doing consistently that gets results. You identify the unconscious competence you already possess, and you make that pattern visible to others. You name and codify the magic you are already performing.
Anchor 3 is authority expression. The voice. Most people wait for a speaking opportunity or a podcast invitation and then frantically try to figure out their message on the spot. This anchor flips that completely. You build your expression before the opportunity arrives. This means developing 3 things: your core talking points, the codified frameworks that come directly from your blueprint and book, your story angles, safe, narrative-distanced anecdotes that illustrate your methodology without reopening old wounds, and your authority topics, the distinct angles that separate your perspective from generic industry chatter. The goal is that your expression sounds exactly like you, not an AI robot, not a ghostwriter, just organized, anchored, and permanently ready. When the keynote invitation, the podcast feature, or the major client conversation arrives, you are not scrambling, you are already there. Anchor 4 is authority visibility. The reach. And this is where everything we have built comes together into something that operates without you. The old way was to chase trends, create isolated posts, and rely on viral moments. The new way is a calm, repeatable structure where one core idea, your framework, is intentionally placed across blogs, posts, articles, and podcasts. Not randomly, not reactively. Everything points back to the same central methodology, creating a network effect that compounds around the clock. This is where the discoverability crisis becomes a structural opportunity. AI systems are not looking for keywords anymore. They are looking for semantic consistency. They scan for coherent, repeated patterns to determine whether an expert is actually worth recommending. If your lived experience is not translated into a structured ecosystem, intelligent search engines will never surface you, no matter how many posts you publish. Over 60% of searches in 2024 ended without a click. But here is the flip side of that statistic. The experts who do get recommended by AI systems are the ones with deep, structured, semantically consistent bodies of work. That is not a threat. That is an invitation. The trap is to panic about volume and reach for generative AI to write your daily posts. But AI-generated content sounds like the mathematical average of the internet. It strips away your unique authority lens. It makes you sound flat and generic. You literally become the noise the algorithm is trying to filter out. The answer is to use AI ethically, to format transcripts, organize schedules, and analyze data, while keeping your core intellectual property anchored in your deeply human, thoughtfully structured book and framework.
Let me show you how these 4 anchors work as a single system, not a checklist. The blueprint creates the boundaries. The book codifies the knowledge inside those boundaries. Expression extracts the talking points from the book, and visibility drives attention back to the blueprint, which anchors everything. When all 4 are set, the ecosystem runs without you. Your framework holds its shape when you walk away. Clients and algorithms find you because your thinking is coherent, predictable, and structured. That is durable authority, not presence-dependent, not algorithm-dependent, structurally permanent. Let me bring all of this back to where we started. Today we began with the anxiety of feeling like a ghost in your own industry while the algorithms reward endless noise. But as AI search continues to evolve, its primary function is precisely to filter that generic, fragmented noise out. The experts who survive and thrive will be the ones with a single, coherent, deeply human body of work, not the loudest voices, the most structured ones. So here is the question I want to leave you with. Could it be that taking the time to slow down to build one profound, deeply human, analog anchor like a thoroughly structured book is actually the most cutting-edge, future-proof technological strategy you could possibly deploy? The ultimate defense against digital noise might just be analog depth. Stop chasing visibility. Build a codified body of work. You are done letting the book sit on the list. You are done being the best-kept secret in your niche. Premium clients don't chase coaches. They find recognized authorities. Authority becomes durable when your thinking no longer depends on your presence. Until next time, keep building the bridge.
If this episode resonated with you, if you recognize yourself as someone with deep expertise, but without the structure to make that expertise discoverable, trusted, and durable, then the Authority Bridge was built for you. The Authority Bridge is a 90-day authority-building system designed to help coaches, consultants, and mission-driven experts transform lived experience into a codified body of work through books, frameworks, strategic content ecosystems, and AI search visibility. To learn more, visit theauthoritybridge.com. Until next time, keep building the bridge. Thank you for listening to the Empowering Story Podcast. This space will be here when you return.
I am Sean Dorff, and I want to thank you for being here. It's an honor to share this space with you. Until next time.